Hey everybody, this is Rahul from the Chaos Gym, and joining me is Jeremy Jallin from All Day Games. He's also working with us at the Chaos Gym, and today we'll be talking about my favorite deck of all time in Expanded, Flareon Vespiquen.
Yeah,
Well,
expanded's been something that I've been testing for a while now, leading up to Arizona regionals. So I've just been basically trying everything, and Flareon Vesquin's definitely like one of the top five decks that you should be trying out for regionals.
yeah, with this being the last tournament before Karen is released, Flareon Vespiquen should be on everyone's radars going into Arizona, and I think it's a very strong deck. So let's just hop into it without further, I guess, delay. The list is pretty simple. Starts out with the 4/4 Flareon, which you kind of need for attacking, more or less. Vengeance, 20 plus 10 for every Pokemon on your discard. Same thing that Be Revenge does, that you guys might be more familiar with. And we chose to play four Energy Evolution Eevees because I personally don't think the Signs of Evolution Eevee is very good. And even though you get the extra HP, and this Eevee is more susceptible to Kyogre and Magnezone EX, you can just attach a fire and get around Archeops, which I think is really big at a lot of matchups. Because Archeops is one of the biggest detriments to this deck. And then I also play a Mr. Mime, which gets around the Magnezone and the Kyogre splash damage.
Yeah, one of my favorite things to do when going first actually is to use the energy evolution to get a Flareon out turn one, just in case. Like, play a bunch of your stuff, get a bunch of Pokemon in the discard, have like a Combi active, and then like a
Mhm.
EV on the bench, and then you attach to the other EV, get a Flareon. You're pretty much set for the next turn.
Yeah, it's like you're setting up a backup attacker. It's just a fantastic thing to have. I also do play one Jolteon, and that's something I really enjoy because it's a free retreater for stuff, and second off, it makes your guys electric type. And without being a lightning type, you really struggle against big threats like Mega Rayquaza and namely Evital EX with a Fighting Fury build. You really cannot knock one of those out, or even a baby Evital. So when you have that Jolteon, rather than overextending and dumping tons and tons of resources into getting like 19 Pokemon in the discard or like 16 in a Bengal, you can simply just get like 8 or 9 and you kill them.
Yeah, it allows you to save your other attackers too, because usually in that matchup, in those matchups, you end up discarding extra EVs, extra Flareons, or extra Combis, or extra Vespiquens to try to hit that like 220 number
Yeah,
or like
and it's just
210
like
number, and
it's not worth overextending for.
yeah.
And so,
One thing that's kind of missing from this list that some other lists have been playing is Wobbuffet,
yeah.
and that's to get around Archeops. But I think with Hexmaniac and the Energy Evolution Eevee,
Mhm.
you should be fine
hmm
in
And
that
if
matchup.
you're really that worried about Archeops, you could cut the fourth Shaman for a Wobbuffet, which is pretty much what my regionals list was like.
It's just a
Um,
terrible starter.
it's so awful to start because we don't play any float stones in this variant, as
Yeah,
opposed to some other variants you may have seen. Um, so we play four Shaman. Most decks play three and one Jirachi, but we play four Shaman just because I really like having that draw early, mid, and late game. Because early game you can pop off and then get the cards you need and set up, and then late game when you get end to low amounts, you can definitely use Shaman to draw into the cards you need to win the game. Get those niche supporters, set up your entire board, and like do something like a Get This turn one or like an N, something whatever you need to do. And with a parallel city in the deck, you can always bounce those two extra shamans off your bench, which is something I love doing in games. So your opponent loses that opportunity to take those four easy prizes.
yeah. Basically, in the beginning, like turn, like first turn, you really don't want to play a supporter that much, and if you do, it's most likely Getsus or Hexmaniac.
hmm
Just because most of the time you're gonna have like Vespiquens or Flareons in your hand that you don't want to discard,
Or
that you
like
want
both
to
your
evolve for next turn,
DCs,
or
something
both
like
DC
that.
stuff like that. So having the four Max Shaman and then the four Ultra Ball makes it so you have a lot of outs to just draw like four cards instead of like discard your hand, draw seven. Was
Yeah.
Sycamore.
And the mime, the next following card, the mime is like a personal inclusion of mine. I really like it against, especially like I said, Kyogre EX earlier. Dual Splash. I don't think Archie Stoy should be a big deck, but in case it resurfaces, it's a very difficult thing to deal with. It deals with Magnezone EX's attack as well to do 2 bench damage for 50 apiece, and it also deals with Darkrai EX's Night Spear and Landorus EX if that's a thing. Against some opponents, I've had people try to attack me with Crobat onto the bench, and it also stops that, which is fantastic. So you're just dealing with some cheeky things that could potentially lose you the game in situations that you were so far ahead that you shouldn't have lost the game.
Well, I think the biggest thing right now that it stops is Fright Night Uvatol.
That too, Fright Night Evital is a very big thing to stop.
Because basically it can two hit your active like Vespiquen and then a Shaman on the bench, and they take three prizes.
Yeah,
So
and that's just terrifying because you're down three prizes against Evital, and Evital is just one of those decks where they have so many resources they can always power up an attacker.
yeah, the egg is kind of cute just because it helps you do certain things with math, with Ultra Ball and things like that, and it makes
Yeah.
it so you actually don't have to discard like that DCE in your hand when you could just bring back the egg with provocation and discard it to Ultra Ball instead.
You can do some fancy stuff with egg. I love egg just because like there's also a play I once made where I had the egg in my hand and I didn't have a way to get it in the discard, so I egged, shamaned, and then I drew to the parallel to pop my egg and shaman into the discard later on, which is pretty fun.
Nice. The card that makes the whole deck run, Battle Compressor.
Yeah, you battle compressors like that's the reason people are saying Vespiquen is dead in standard. I personally don't think so, but battle compressor, having four of them, you literally can put Pokemon in the discard, supporters in the discard, whatever you need for that specific moment. Getting those niche supporters like your AZ, your Blacksmith, your Getsus in the discard gives you so much access to them with a VS Seeker on your first turn, and like it's just you're thinning your deck out of things that you don't need. Say you're not against Evital or Rayquaza, you get rid of that Jolteon, you get your Mime if you don't need it in the matchup. You put the egg in the discard so you have accessibility to it turn one. You just start going through your deck like crazy fast, and like there's been games where you can with four compressor and Ultra Balls and Shamans, you can get to like 10 cards left in your deck by the end of turn one.
Yeah. The other items are basically self-explanatory for Ultra Ball, for versus Seeker. And you have one Silver Bangle and one Life Dew as your tools.
Yeah, Life 2 could also be Computer Search if you'd like it to be. That's something I've gone back and forth on. Computer Search is also very nice in this deck, but I prefer the Life 2 variant just because Life 2 can give you that seventh attacker in a deck where you're basically playing all one prize attackers, and if you get that seventh Life 2 down on somebody, it makes them overextend to take that prize or go around it for a little bit. Or if they play a scrapper or something, well, good, they've dealt with it for that turn, but you're making them waste resources or have that answer immediately to deal with that Life 2.
Yeah, and Silver Bangle is just something that helps with those big EX decks.
Mm-hmm.
Gets that. It's basically three Pokemon in the discard. So
Oh,
it's
Silver
really
Bangle's
good.
so
Yeah.
nice. Yeah, early game especially, we don't want to overextend. And let's get into some of those fringe supporters.
Yeah,
So
so
the
basically,
Force
the Four Sycamore is almost
staple.
standard. Most people run like three, but
I don't like that at all.
yeah.
Because in expanded, you're dealing with so much more item lock variants and like ability lock variants. Like if you're up against a Groudon deck, you can't use your Shamans, you can't use that Jirachi EX. You have to rely on that Sycamore. You have to have that in your opening hand or you're compressoring into it. And if you're up against like Trevenant, Sycamore is a tool that can actually help you win the game because even though the matchup is abysmal, you have a shot. With Flareon, you have a shot in every matchup.
I don't
And
know.
especially against
Trevenant's still pretty bad.
Trevenant's pretty bad, but if you can go first and start hitting them, you need those Sycamores every turn, though. You need to be able to get into your resources. Dead drawing even one turn, you can insta lose the game.
Yeah, so there's
Um,
6 one-of supporters in the deck.
Yeah.
So you've got-
And self-explanatory, more or less. You want to use it at points where you've not really early game because you've got those. Unless you have a really really bad hand and you want to put some like DCs back in your deck or something like that. But most of the time, N is for a late game or if you're behind in the game to get you back into the game. Lysander's just to help you out, pull up whatever you need to kill. Lysander's really strong in this deck because sometimes you'll eliminate 2 threats and then put down an EX and you go taking that EX. Thanks for the 2 prizes.
It's basically like the last like 2 prizes to clean up a Shaman too.
Right. Yeah. You're getting those prizes. You're outvaluing them. Hex Maniac is one of my favorite cards in this
I
deck.
think it's probably one of the best supporter cards in this deck.
Oh, it's because you can pop off on your first turn and then just hex and sit there and be like, all right, do you have an answer to me, or am I just gonna win the game?
Yeah.
It's just very very strong against a lot of things in expanded, and that's why I love it. It's just really really strong. There's no other way around it. Getsis is super fringy, and I love Getsis just because Getsis in expanded has the potential to literally just win you the game because so many decks are so item heavy. With 4 Battle Compressor being almost a staple in a lot of decks, 4 Ultra Balls, 4 VS Seekers, you're dedicating over a third of your deck to item cards. So Getsising somebody on your first turn, you're taking away that Ultra Ball, you're taking away that Battle Compressor, you're taking away that VS Seeker, you're leaving them with like effectively a dead hand. Or unless they're lucky enough to start a supporter, good for them. But if not, you're putting yourself in a position where you're drawing a lot of cards and setting your opponent back a lot of cards,
Yeah,
which is
and
super.
any deck that you play Jirachi EX, you should play one Guesses just in case.
Yeah,
It's really
yeah,
good
like
against Blastoise, even though it's not played anymore, and like Yveltal, it's amazing against.
yeah,
So
because they play dark patches, lasers. Oh god,
Max Elixirs, everything.
yeah. And like other than Getsis, like maybe and if you don't like a Getsis in this deck, you could just play a Teammates, which is a notable non-inclusion that we don't have in this deck because I don't like Teammates personally because you most of the time need more than those two cards in
Yeah,
any scenario. This deck just needs more than two cards. Blacksmith is what keeps you going through the end of the game to get those fire energies back onto your Flareons. Because you want to ideally be using the DCEs to attack with Vespiquen, not really your Flareon early game. And then once those DCEs are gone, you can just blacksmith them onto Flareon, and bam, you've got insta 2 energy onto somebody to attack with.
yeah.
Also helps against Giratina, especially. That's why we don't play a Ranger, because I've never actually had much trouble against Giratina. So, AZ, it's also one of my favorite cards in this deck, because you're sometimes put in positions where you have, like, you open a Shaman or open a Jirachi, or something like you don't want to keep in the active spot, and AZing that up or on a certain crucial turn is really, really good. And maybe you can AZ something like just like an unknown or something out of the active spot. It's just
Well, yeah,
it helps you get out of sticky situations.
it's also the fact that there's no escape rope, switch, float zone in the list.
Yeah.
So AZ is the only um, actual
Hmm.
like out to getting some
Yeah.
of the stuff out of
And
the active.
and the reason I chose AZ over like a floatstone typically is because
You can reuse it.
yeah, and it's also really good against item lock. I've been put in situations where my opponent's answer to what I'm doing is Lysander up like my Mime or Lysander up like my Jirachi and Quaking Punch and give themselves time. But if you just hit that easy that one turn, they just look at you and go, "Well, I think I just lost."
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, that's the Parallel City.
Parallel
We
City, like I said,
explained it
is
before. Yeah.
so good in this deck because you can bounce off the EXs off your bench. You can limit their damage if you need to against things like Archie Stoice, against just
Mirror
random
match.
deck things. Mirror match especially, yeah. If you can get the parallel down mirror match, sometimes you just want to put them to three. Sometimes just because they've benched two shamans and they don't have any other things on the bench, you put them to three, they're stuck.
Yeah.
And like sure, Mirror most of the time will play different stadiums. Most Vespiquens and Expanded do tend to play Forest of Giant Plants.
Really?
Um,
I haven't noticed
yeah,
that. I've either seen Parallel City or Tropical Beach.
Beach is also a big one. I think Beach is probably more popular than anything. But I don't like the Tropical Beach version because I just don't think it's better than Parallel. And I
Yeah.
don't think you need to play more than one stadium in this deck. There's just not enough room.
Well, Parallel is also kind of like a muscle band later on in the game because you're play it, pitch like a Shaman and a Jirachi from your bench. That's 20 more damage to your attack.
Yeah. And like they're gonna bounce it like a majority of the time. And like the biggest deck I had trouble with while building this was Mega Manectric, which I don't think is that viable anymore. But once Karen is released, I think it's very viable again.
Yeah.
Mega Manectric is they usually play parallel in big numbers, so you want to get your parallel down before they can to limit your damage. That's why I put a parallel in, ideally, because you're doing two things with that. You're bouncing two Pokemon off your bench, and you're making it so they can't parallel you.
Yeah, that's basically the deck.
Yeah, it's pretty plain and simple. It's there's like a lot of different tech cards you can throw in Vespiquen to make it better. For example, the Jirachi promo if you're afraid of Giratinas. You can throw in the Wobbuffet if you're afraid of Archeops. You can throw in a Teammates if you really want to like be able to get those cards when you need those cards. You can up the Lysander count to 2. You can do whatever you really want with this deck. That's what I really, really love about it, other than like the staple skeleton. So if you have like any questions about your metagame, anything about that nature, please feel free to message me or Jeremy. I'm sure either of us will have an answer for you. It's pretty
and
much
yeah,
like
like this deck actually has a pretty good matchup against Yveltal
mhm.
because of the Jolteon and the fact that it's all like one prize attackers, really.
Right, and I expect Evital to be one of the biggest decks going into Arizona regionals. So this deck does fare up very well against it. Its weakest matchup would have to be Trevenant, which I think is the number 2 deck. So
Yeah.
like caution to the wind. You can beat the number 1 deck, but if you're losing to Trevenant at the same time, you're probably not going to have a very good time. But if you can dodge all the Trevenants in the room, you're going to have a great time on the day. I promise you.
Yeah, because this deck also beats a lot of the like fringe
Random,
decks
yeah, like
into
it
like the
beats
top.
random decks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
It's
like
just a very consistent deck that does a lot of damage.
right, and Vespiquen like you have a shot in every matchup. Like you're never instantly out of it unless like you like a hand of like 6 items and they go turn one trip. Then you just pick your cards up and go to the next game. But most of the time you've got a shot in almost every matchup, especially if you're going first.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much the gist of it. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like the video if you enjoyed it. Be sure to subscribe, and that's pretty much it. That was joining me was Jeremy today, and I'm Rahul. And go over there and support him at All Day Games. And please be sure to support us here at the Chaos Gym. We'll be doing a lot more with Expanded in the next week probably. But then we'll go back to Standard because Orlando Regionals is coming up. So go check out the information video for that as well.
Yeah,
Thank
you'll
you guys so
definitely
much.
see a lot more of me in the next week.
Yeah, Jeremy's here to fill you guys up and Expanded because he's playing Arizona. It's his home state.
Yep. It's going to be
All
fun.
right. Thank you guys so much.
Peace, guys.